Ever packed your suitcase so tight that it exploded at the airport? Or maybe you've forgotten your passport at home only to remember when you're next in line at customs. Welcome to the world of laughable travel blunders. Let's face it, we've all had those oops moments while traveling. Maybe you've tried to cram a week's worth of clothes into a carry-on only to have it burst open at the check-in counter, leaving your underwear scattered for all to see. Or perhaps you've experienced that heart-stopping moment when you realize your passport is still sitting on your kitchen counter just as you're about to board an international flight. These travel mishaps can feel like the end of the world in the moment, but in retrospect, they often make for the best stories. The kind you'll fondly recall years later at family gatherings and parties, getting everyone roaring with laughter. But the good news is, these amusing anecdotes aren't just for laughs. They're also invaluable learning experiences. Each travel blunder we've made or heard about is a lesson in disguise, teaching us what not to do the next time we venture out into the world. So why not share the wealth of knowledge these hilarious travel misadventures have to offer? From the case of the exploding suitcase to the passport panic, we've gathered a collection of the most entertaining and enlightening travel blunders, all with the aim of helping you avoid similar predicaments on your future journeys. Welcome to Global Travel Venture. In today's video, we'll take you on a wild ride through these tales of travel gone wrong, each one a humorous testament to the unpredictability of life on the road. But don't worry, there's a silver lining to each of these clouded tales. Practical advice to keep you from repeating the same mistakes. Whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or setting off on your first big adventure, these stories are sure to tickle your funny bone and equip you with invaluable tips for smoother travels. But don't worry, we've all been there. And today, we're going to share some funny and educational stories about travel mishaps and how you can avoid them. Remember that suitcase explosion we mentioned earlier? Let's dive into that comedic catastrophe. Picture this, a seasoned globetrotter, let's call him Bob, on his way to a 2-week-long vacation. He's been everywhere, from the canals of Venice to the deserts of the Sahara. But Bob has one fatal flaw. He's an overpacker, so there he was at the airport, lugging a suitcase that could easily double as a small car. As he approached the check-in counter, he was already sweating bullets, not from nerves, but from the sheer effort of moving his mammoth suitcase. The attendant, barely concealing a smirk, informs him that his luggage is way over the weight limit. Bob, undeterred, decides to rearrange his packing right there at the airport. He unzips the suitcase and chaos ensues. Clothes spring out like coiled snakes, toiletries scatter across the floor, and a rogue shoe even takes flight, narrowly missing the attendant's head. The surrounding travelers watch in a mix of horror and amusement as Bob scrambles to contain his exploding suitcase. Now let's pause Bob's misadventures for a second. What can we learn from this suitcase debacle? For starters, packing light is key. Instead of packing for every possible scenario, consider the essentials first. Clothes that can be mixed and matched, travel-sized toiletries, and minimal footwear are your best friends. A packing list can also be a lifesaver. It keeps you organized and prevents you from packing unnecessary items. Remember, you're going on a vacation, not relocating. Lastly, always leave room for souvenirs and the unexpected. You might stumble upon a charming hat at a local market or need space for that extra sweater because the weather turned colder than expected. Let's go back to our friend Bob. After his suitcase spectacle, he's now a changed man. He's learned his lesson and is a staunch advocate of the phrase less is more. So the next time you're packing, remember less is more. Unless you're packing a sense of humor, always bring an extra. Now let's talk about the infamous passport panic. Sounds thrilling, doesn't it? Picture this, you're all set for your dream vacation. The suitcases are packed, the house is locked, you've checked the stove twice, and you're off to the airport. You're cruising down the highway, humming to your favorite tunes, when suddenly a thought strikes you. The passport, you left it on the kitchen counter. Oh, the sheer panic that follows. A U-turn on the highway, a mad dash back home, praying that the traffic lights stay green, and the relief when you finally clutch that little blue book in your hands, even though you've missed your flight. Sounds like a scene from a comedy, doesn't it? But trust me, it's far from funny when it happens to you. So how can we avoid this passport panic? Well, organization is key. Make a list of all the important documents you need for your trip. This includes your passport, driver's license, travel insurance documents, and any visas or permits you might require. Keep them all together in a travel wallet or a dedicated folder. Now here's a pro tip. Make copies of all your important documents, both physical and digital. This way, If the original documents get lost or stolen, you still have access to all the necessary information. And don't forget to keep these copies separate from the originals. Also, consider using technology to your advantage. There are numerous travel apps available that allow you to store digital copies of your documents so you can access them from anywhere, anytime. And the night before your trip, place your travel wallet or folder in your carry-on bag. This way you won't forget it in the rush of last-minute packing, so before you leave your house, double-check your documents, or better yet, triple-check. You'll thank yourself later. Ever tried ordering a steak and ended up with a snake? No? Well, let's talk about language barriers. Picture this. A charming little bistro in the heart of Paris. Our friend, let's call him Bob, is feeling pretty confident. He's brushed up on his high school French, and he's ready to impress. He scans the menu and decides to order a juicy steak. With a flourish, he says to the waiter, "Je voudrais un serpent, s'il vous plaît." The waiter's eyebrows shoot up, but he nods and walks away. Bob leans back, feeling quite proud of his linguistic prowess. Fast forward to the waiter returning with a plate. But instead of the mouth-watering steak Bob expected, he's staring at a delicacy he didn't see coming. A snake. Yes, Bob had ordered a snake instead of a steak, much to the amusement of the surrounding patrons. Now we all love a good laugh, but perhaps not at the expense of our dinner, so how can we avoid such culinary surprises? Firstly, learning basic phrases in the local language can be a lifesaver. Simple things like please, thank you, yes, no, help, and of course, food-related terms. You don't have to be fluent, but a little effort goes a long way in avoiding misunderstandings, and it shows respect for the local culture. If you're thinking, I can't possibly learn a new language for every trip, don't worry. There are plenty of translation apps available that can assist you in real time. Some even allow you to take pictures of text, like menus, and translate them instantly. These apps can be a real game changer, turning potential misadventures into smooth sailing. And lastly, never underestimate the power of gestures. Pointing at a menu item, or using your fingers to indicate how many of something you want can bridge many a language gap. Just be aware that some gestures might have different meanings in different cultures, so do a quick check before you accidentally offend someone. Remember, steak and snake might sound similar, but they sure don't taste the same. Speaking of taste, ever had a culinary misadventure that left you, well, speechless? Let me take you back to a time when I found myself in the heart of Thailand, eager to immerse myself in the local cuisine. Now, who doesn't love a good food adventure, right? So there I was, in a bustling street market, surrounded by an array of colorful and aromatic dishes. I pointed to a mysterious, fiery red bowl of soup, and the vendor, with a wicked gleam in his eye, handed it over. A spoonful in, and I realized that fiery red was not just a description of the color. My mouth was a volcano, and I was the unsuspecting villager on the slopes. I had unwittingly ordered a local dish that was a favorite among those with a penchant for spice levels that could melt steel. Let's just say the aftermath was enlightening. And by enlightening, I mean a night spent in close acquaintance with the porcelain throne. My adventurous palate had led me into a trap of explosive proportions. So what's the takeaway here? Well, before you dive headfirst into a dish, it's a good idea to ask what's in it, especially if you're in a country renowned for its spicy food. And remember, spicy can mean different things in different parts of the world. Another tip is to start small. Try a spoonful before you commit to a whole bowl. And always have a cooling beverage at the ready. Trust me, your taste buds will thank you. Lastly, be aware of your body's tolerance levels. There is no shame in admitting that your stomach might not be as adventurous as your spirit. So the next time you're feeling adventurous, remember to ask what's in the dish. You might just avoid an unexpected culinary surprise. Now let's move on to something we can all relate to. Unpredictable weather ruining our perfect holiday plans. Picture this, folks. Our dear friend Jim decides to take a week-long trip to Hawaii, dreaming of sunny skies and gentle breezes. He packs his suitcase with nothing but shorts, tank tops, and an endless supply of sunscreen. But as luck would have it, as soon as he lands, he's greeted by an unexpected cold front. Suddenly, his beach vacation turns into a shivering contest, and all he has to keep him warm is a sun hat and flip-flops. Oh, the irony. He went from dreaming of sunny skies to wishing for a warm blanket. And let's not forget about the time when our lovely couple, Mary and Joe, planned their romantic getaway to Paris in the spring. They imagined strolling down the Champs-Élysées under a mild drizzle, sharing a single umbrella. But instead, they found themselves in the middle of a heat wave, with not a cloud in sight. There they were, melting ice cream in hand, wishing for that mild drizzle they once thought was a nuisance. These stories might sound funny, but they also teach us a valuable lesson about travel preparation. The weather, my friends, is as unpredictable as a game of bingo. One can never be too sure of what's in store. So how do we tackle this unpredictable beast? Firstly, always check the weather forecast for your destination before you start packing. And I mean the week-long forecast, not just the day of your departure. This gives you a general idea of what to expect. Secondly, pack versatile clothing. Layering is your best friend. A lightweight jacket, a couple of sweaters, and some breathable shirts can go a long way, irrespective of the weather. And don't forget the essentials: a compact umbrella and a good pair of walking shoes. Lastly, keep a positive mindset. You can't control the weather, but you can control how you react to it. Make the most of your situation and create memories that you'll cherish forever. Remember, there's no such thing as bad weather, only unsuitable clothing. Well, folks, we've laughed, we've learned, and hopefully, we've saved you from future travel blunders. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane, shall we? We kicked off our journey with the unforgettable tale of the exploding suitcase. The age-old struggle of overpacking. Remember, when it comes to packing, less is more, unless we're talking about underwear. In that case, more is definitely more. And let's not forget about our dear friend, the suitcase lock. It's there to safeguard your belongings, not to challenge you with an impromptu puzzle. Next up was the passport panic. Now, we all know that passports are like gold in the world of travel. Guard them with your life, or at least with the same intensity you'd guard your favorite slice of cheesecake at a family gathering. And remember, a photocopy of your passport is like an insurance policy for your peace of mind. So make a copy, or two, or even three. Trust me, your future self will thank you. Then we dove into the lost in translation debacle. Remember, language is a funny thing. One wrong syllable and you might just end up ordering a plate of spicy frogs instead of a frothy cappuccino. So invest in a good translation app, or better yet, learn a few key phrases in the local language. You'll be amazed at how far a little please and thank you can go. Next, we savored the misadventures in local cuisine. Yes, trying new foods is one of the best parts of traveling. But remember, not all that glitters is gold, and not all that's served on a plate is edible. At least, not to everyone. So, do your research, ask the locals, and most importantly, trust your gut, literally. And finally, we weathered the unpredictable weather woes. We all know that Mother Nature has a sense of humor, and sometimes she likes to mix things up a bit. So pack for all seasons, check the weather forecast regularly, and always have a trusty umbrella at hand. Because let's face it, nobody looks good with a bad case of tourist frizz. As we wrap up this whirlwind tour of travel mishaps and their solutions, remember that the journey is just as important as the destination. And sometimes the mishaps and misadventures make the best stories. So laugh at the blunders, learn from the mistakes, and keep exploring. And remember, no matter what happens, keep your sense of humor handy. It's the one thing you should never travel without. Until next time, safe travels!